Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 59 of the PE Geek Podcast. And as always, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Now, I'm really excited today to welcome a good friend of mine and a real contributor to the physical education community online, none other than Nathan Horne of PhysED. How are you, Nathan?
Good, Jared. Thanks very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time coming. You know, we have known each other for a number of years now, and you have a podcast, and I have a podcast, and I felt like at some stage we were going to get together and do something like this. So I really appreciate you spending your time here today. Paint the picture of where you are right now.
Right now, I'm sitting in my office at my school in Singapore,
Okay.
ISS International School, just on a free lesson right now.
Perfect.
So, and yeah, you asked me if I was happy to do it, and of course I was happy to do it. And I think like you've been such a big a help to me and a support to me, and somebody that I've sort of like really gone to for a lot of help over the years. So I'm more than happy to help you out and be on this podcast.
Well, it's absolute pleasure, and I love the stuff that you're doing. So I wanted to get you on here to sort of talk through your journey with using technology in your program, but more specifically, even talk about just your journey in teaching in general. And I've heard your story a lot, but for those people that haven't heard it, where did you grow up, and how did you end up getting to Singapore?
Yeah. So I guess I'm Australian, obviously, if you can't tell by the accent. From Tasmania originally. Grew up in Hobart, and then sort of I went to university in Tasmania as well, at the University of Tasmania, where I studied a Bachelor of Human Movement. So which at the time sort of was, there were three options there. You could either go down a sports science route, a sports management route, or a PE route. And I was very keen to do sports science, and then realised that the science was too difficult, and that there weren't that many jobs available in sports science in Australia, and sort of did a couple of teaching pracs and realised that I really loved it. So got into teaching that way, and then similar sort of situation in Tasmania. There weren't a lot of teaching jobs available when I graduated. So there was a company, I think, that came into the university actually just before we graduated, and we're talking about going to the UK and being a relief teacher or a supply teacher there. And so me and three of my friends decided that we were going to up and go to the UK. And so we went and did that, did some relief teaching there, and then caught the travel bug and ended up going from the UK to Cambodia, from Cambodia to Italy, and now from Italy to Singapore. And I've been here this is my fourth year, I think, now in Singapore. So yeah, lots of different experiences, different places, teaching different things, but it's been a bit of an adventure, but it's been a good one.
I think it's really impressive that teaching can do this for you. So, it's a job that is needed everywhere, and you can tie up your own interests with a bit of travel and the job that you have skills in, and sort of make it all work well together, which I think is amazing. And I commonly meet teachers who have just been around in that international circuit and gone to lots of countries. What sort of insights do you reckon you get from that? Do you feel like you've got a different perspective of the global education landscape because of the fact that you've worked in so many places?
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially coming from Tasmania, which is a small place,
Yeah.
And can be quite insular in terms of the way that people think or the way that people view certain things. So sort of like, I think you'd find a lot of young Tasmanians, whether they're in education or whether they're in any field, tend to like get out, and whether that's just going to Melbourne, or going overseas, there's that sort of drain of young people wanting to get out and experience something different. So I think being able to sort of go further afield than just go to the mainland, was definitely a big thing for me, and it really opened my eyes up. I remember like going to the UK and thinking like, all right, this is going to be pretty similar to Australia, and then getting there and realizing that it was like very different, and especially the schools. Schools were extremely divergent to like what schools were like in Australia, and so it was this almost this culture shock. But I think like having taught in a lot of different countries in a lot of different areas, like I didn't teach PE in the first 4 years that I was a teacher, I didn't teach any PE. So coming from having a PE degree to not teaching PE was a culture shock, but I learned a lot about education, a lot about myself, a lot about kids through doing that. And so then when I came back to PE, when I went to Italy, it was sort of like that passion was back again, and just being able to interact with kids from, like the school I'm at right now, we've got about 300 kids in our elementary school, and there's 50-something nationalities.
Yeah.
So just getting all those different experiences and different backgrounds, and, you talk about developing kids' physical literacy and stuff like that, and, like so many different cultures of thinking around the value of PE and the value of sport and the value of movement coming from so many different backgrounds. So it's been really valuable.
All right. Well, what about the similarities? What sort of similarities have there been with some of the schools? So, I mean, there's obviously some differences, cultural and all sorts of things. But have you seen any like themes that appear, whether that's in a PE context or whether that's in just a general education setting at all?
Well, I think at the end of the day, a school's a school. Mm-hmm. And, the structures and the things that are in place within a school are going to be pretty similar wherever you go. I think kids, especially in the sort of primary or elementary years, no matter where I've been in any of those countries, have always been, the same, very excited to be moving, very excited to be active, and playing, and just that joy of movement and joy of being able to be active is always there.
Yeah.
I think nearly everywhere I've gone, there's been sort of, you face challenges based around the way that schools work, and whether that's challenges with resources or technology or just sort of like the environment that you're in, they're always going to be there. But I think there's as much as there's a difference. I could walk into any of the schools that I've worked in and sort of still feel like I was doing the same job, and sort of the way that I feel about education sort of doesn't really change based on where I am.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to hear. And I mean, I think the same thing. So, I've worked in and work with teachers in lots of schools, and you do see similarities and same issues and challenges, probably more so in that area. Like the common themes of things that people struggle with seem to be global, and then there's also common things that people strive and get success with. So I'm glad that you sort of mentioned that as well. So you landed in Singapore, and at that stage you were starting to teach PhysED, I'm assuming, around about that time. And then somehow you got connected to the internet, and then therefore the social networks and PhysED. How did that all happen?
Yeah, so I think probably my first, so like when I was in Italy before I was in Singapore, was the first time that I was teaching PE full time. And I was there for 2 years. And sort of the second year I was there, the school got one iPad for the whole school. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'd like to use that. No, because nobody else was using it. Yeah. And I took it and used it a bit. I had to sign it out. And so that was probably my first, the first time that I'd used technology. And it was around the same time that I sort of like somebody suggested that I get on Twitter. And so I did that as well, and found it really not useful at all. I was probably used it.
My first ever use was the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I used it for like 2 weeks and then realized that I was like, what is this? Like, I don't get it. And then I went away from it, and then it took encouragement again from somebody else to say, no, like, stick with it, and then sort of followed the right people and started the conversations. And I think you were one of the people that I probably connected with at that point, because I saw what you were doing. It was, I think, you and Andy pretty early on, and then Joey were probably three of the first three people that I connected with. And it's really interesting because now probably the three of you are the three people that I have the strongest connection with and continue to connect with. So it's sort of come full circle in that sense. But yeah, that was my first experience with technology. And then when I moved to Singapore, there was more of a focus on technology at this school. I think from grade 5 up, we're a 1-to-1 max school. And then there's iPads and other laptops available for the younger kids. So there was immediately that focus. And I had an iPad for me, and then I was able to get some iPads for the class. And I started blogging for the the school. So I had the school blog, issphysed.weebly.com. And then that sort of, once I saw how easy it was to blog, I thought, I could, I'd like to start my own blog so I can reflect on what I'm doing as a professional. So I started iphysed.com and sort of just went from there. And it's just been this sort of like exponential growth from there of looking at different ways to do things and ways to make things easier.
Perfect. And your website, iPhysEd, is one of the only sites that I personally continue to read. I find everything that you do there really, really valuable. And I think you've hit the nail on the head for me as well about why I continue to write mine. And it's very therapeutic in many ways. I mean, you've got to put your ideas on the table, and people may not agree with everything you say, but it creates this discussion and dialogue, and it definitely helps the person who's writing it grow. Have you found the same sort of thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like just even last week, like I was, like I know that this episode's going to go to air a little bit later, but there was the video that has been going around on Facebook and of the like tic-tac-toe relay, and it's been viewed 25 million times. It's a fantastic game. Like it's awesome. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's a fantastic game. And then all of a sudden, like I just got this real like this thought in my head that I couldn't get rid of when I saw people just retweeting it and putting video. Oh, here's what I did in my class. I did it. I played this game like almost the next day, and I just couldn't get rid of this thought that I had. And it was literally like 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and I was like, right, I've got to like write this down, otherwise I'm going to forget it. And like an hour later, I had a blog post about like using PhysEd with a purpose, because like in my mind I was thinking like it's a great game, but like what did people have planned to do in their lesson that they just threw away because they saw this game on Facebook? And the whole idea of that, like, we shouldn't just have this collection of games that we turn up and roll out our collection of games and say, okay, we're going to play this game today, then we're going to play this game. Like there needs to be a purpose behind what people are doing, and I wanted people to think about that purpose. Of like, well, if you're going to play that game, why are you going to play it? Like, how's it helping your kids? How's it connected to what you're learning about at the moment? And I knew writing it that people were going to have maybe a different opinion than me, but I wanted to have that conversation with people. And it's been really interesting because a lot of people have replied and shared their thoughts, both agreeing and disagreeing. And it's helped me to understand my feelings better. And I think it's helped other people to sort of like reflect on what they're doing as well. So I think you're right. Like I started the website as a thing for me to be able to reflect on what I was doing. And if it helps other people to reflect on what they're doing as well, then I think that like, that's great, but that's not the reason that I started it.
Yeah. Tremendous. And I mean, I think if you go back and look at your earliest posts, I've done this exercise numerous times and read how my thoughts were then and how they've sort of evolved now, and you can definitely see change. So, I mean, people maybe get this whole idea that when they start blogging, they've got to have this website where heaps of people come to it and whatever. Most of the time, it's not even for that. It's literally for your own benefit, and I encourage anyone to get started. You can do it so easy these days with websites like Weebly or a WordPress site, and you can be away with your thoughts. So I think that's fantastic. And I mean, I know that I've seen some really impressive content around technology on your site over the years. And one of the things that I would like you to share and talk more about is the 4C's, the concept that you use to sort of explain how and why technology is valuable for your class.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll start by like prefacing it by saying that I was one of those teachers when I first started, like I mentioned, like having the iPad and stuff, like that was very much all about the app and like what app am I going to use next. And like I'd find these apps that were like PE related and I'd be like, great, I'm going to use that in my class tomorrow. And it sort of goes with what I was saying before. It was like I wasn't really thinking about the purpose behind why I was using it. I was just using it because it was something that was cool. So my thinking has definitely changed. And like you said, if you go back and look at some of the early posts that I had on the website, it was definitely based around like, oh, check out this cool app that I found. And the 4C's sort of came out of that as my thinking was changing. I was thinking about, well, like if I'm going to use this technology, which is great, and there are fantastic tools out there to use, how am I going to use it in a way that's going to be really effective for me as a teacher to like make things easier for me, also to help me to make things easier for my kids or to give them the opportunity to be able to do things. So I sort of came up with these 4C's. It was the 3 C's for the longest time and I couldn't think of the 4th C. So I had 3 C's and something else, another letter, and then I finally thought of another C word. So my 4 C's that I sort of came up with was create, collect, celebrate, and connect. So they sort of all fit together and sort of work together to make the way that I use technology in PE more meaningful for me and more meaningful for my students.
Awesome. So I'm assuming that when you look at a tool, then they're under that 4C framework, if you like, and if they help do any of those things, then they could potentially be a tool that might get introduced somewhere along the line if they bring about the right result for your students.
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely think now not about the tool but about the outcome. What do I want the outcome to be first, and then if there's a tool that's going to help me to do that, then I'll sort of explore that and see whether it's going to be the best way to do it. Because often, you can spend a lot of time using technology to get you to a certain point when there may have been a better way to do it without technology. Yeah. And sometimes we get caught up in saying I have to use it if I've got it. But just thinking about, what's best for the kids, what's going to be the easiest for them to be able to demonstrate their learning or be able to get from where they need to be to where they're going. So if an app or a tool fits into one of those 4 things, or helps me to get the kids from point A to point B, then I'll definitely use it. And if it's a creation thing, is there a tool that's going to help them to be able to create content within PE? So if it's I'm looking for them to create I'm doing a fitness unit right now, if I want them to create a workout, rather than just have them draw little stick men, which they're very good at, but it doesn't really show exactly what the movement might be if they're trying to show me star jumps or push-ups or something. I've been getting them to use the iPads, and they've been making little videos or GIFs of them doing the workout. So the GIFs are great because they just repeat. So anybody can watch that and see that movement over and over and over again, and they know exactly what to do. So that might be an example of a tool that's helped them with the creation of content rather than just drawing on a piece of paper. They're actually able to film it, and then it becomes something that is a valuable resource, not only for them, but it can be shared with other people as well.
Absolutely. So the creation part, absolutely, super important in the PE space. I like the fact that the creation stuff sits at the top of that Bloom's taxonomy. So if you're creating content, then you've got to be hopefully doing all the other parts that fit underneath it, analyzing it and etc. So I think creation's massive. And you mentioned 3 other C's. One of those was celebration. So what sort of tools do you use to celebrate some of the things that take place in your school?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned earlier, we have a blog for the PE program here at the school. So a lot of the stuff is pushed out on that. So that's a way for us to be able to celebrate what's happening in lessons.
So to parent bodies and so on?
Yeah. We're really lucky here at the school that all our kids have signed forms that say that their photographs and stuff can be shared online. So it's completely open. Anybody who can go to the blog can access it. But yeah, definitely it's for parents and for the kids as well. They love to see videos and photos and stuff of themselves online. So that's one way we sort of celebrate. The other way is through we have social media channels. So we've got the Twitter account as well, so things get tweeted out. And I've actually sort of connected those two right now. So a lot of the stuff that goes out on the blog is actually just coming straight from the Twitter account.
Okay.
Kids all have portfolios, electronic portfolios from grade 2 to grade 5.
And that's for all subject areas, I'm assuming? Or is it just
for phys ed? Yeah, so they have one electronic portfolio that's for all subject areas, and within that they have a page that is specific to PE. So We're putting a lot of their stuff in there so they can use that to sort of show parents and especially grandparents and people who are, a lot of the people here are not from Singapore, but they want to sort of share with their family and friends back in their home countries. Perfect. So that's a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 of the 4 C's. Which C would you like to cover next and talk about how? Well,
I think talking about celebrating, we're talking about portfolios and stuff. One of the big challenges I think with in education with evidence is collecting it. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to collect hundreds of kids worth of evidence, of like, you know, photos, videos, work, stuff like that. So the other C that I've looked at is collecting, and, you know, like I've used a variety of different ways of doing it, and I sort of have a system now which works for me. It might not work for everyone, but I think that cloud services definitely are the way to go with that. Like I use Google Drive right now. I have used in the past like Dropbox, Evernote, things like that. But I've found we're a Google Apps school, so that works really well. All the kids have Google Apps accounts. So I use Google Drive, and I use an add-on. So Doctopus, or I think it was called G-Class Folders. I don't know if it's called that anymore, but basically I have a spreadsheet that I set up at the start of the year with all the kids and their classes, and I run the add-on through Drive, and it creates folders for every kid in every class that is shared with them and is shared with me and shared with their class teacher. So any time that we're doing anything in PE, using any of the devices, they can just automatically save any photographs or videos or anything like that into their folder, and it's then accessible to them, to me, to their classroom teacher at any time that they want. And then they can take that sort of stuff and transfer that across into their portfolio. So rather than walking around with a binder full of photographs that I've printed out, you know, it's all there, and I have, you know, 4 years worth of student learning evidence in Google Drive right now.
Amazing. And I think you touched on a really important point, which comes back to one of your previous points as well, about the collection of and using Google Drive that works for you. And the point here is that it's about how you collect. It's not necessarily about the tool that you choose to do that with. You're getting the outcome with one tool, and someone else can get the exact same outcome in terms of collection with another tool. So it really sort of hones in on that message that you made earlier. The final C in connection, I'm assuming that's something that you take quite seriously as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like connection, you know, like it could be as connecting with, as me as the teacher connecting with other teachers, or it could be the kids connecting with other kids. Sort of like, I think like my first thought about it is like me connecting with other PE teachers, because often, you know, like teachers are in situations where they're in a department where it may only just be them. So they don't get to have those rich conversations with people all the time about, you know, reflecting on what they're doing or sort of bouncing ideas off each other. So being able to connect with other teachers in other schools in similar situations or in different situations enables you to be able to think, you know, like have those conversations where, even though you're not in the same room. Yeah. So that's sort of one part of it. The other part of it is the kids, like, you know, we've had some really great connections between schools, both here in Singapore and overseas. Like the thing that jumps to mind immediately is like the Burp It On challenge, out of Deseronto in Canada. You know, like that started with a tweet between two teachers that ended up with kids connecting with each other around physical activity. So, you know, like we're not limited in the way that we live anymore, that we're stuck in our own little corner of the world. Like we can be anywhere, anytime right now with the technology that exists. So, you know, our kids have access to that, and they use it in their own way outside of school. So there's no reason we shouldn't use it in school as well. For
sure. And wrap good teaching around all of those 4C's and you can have some major impact. So yeah, really appreciate you sharing the framework that sort of guides why you use technology and how you best get results from it. How would people connect with you further if they wanted to learn more from you and catch up with the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's obviously the website, PhysED.com. You can go there, and a lot of the stuff I've talked about is there. Like you said, I've blogged about it, and there's resources and stuff there. They can connect with me on Twitter at PE Nathan. They can drop me an email. All my contact details are on the website, so probably the website's the best place to go and do that. And yeah, definitely, like I'm more than happy to sort of connect with people. And you know, I've had a lot of people like yourself help me out over the years, and I sort of am happy to help anybody that needs help and is looking for ideas around sort of making their PE programs more purposeful and more meaningful, and if they're using technology, helping them do that. So yeah.
Excellent. Really appreciate it. And I want to mention that you're also a masterclass leader and keynote speaker at the upcoming Connected PE conference. So if you want to catch up with Nathan and join his masterclass sessions, then you can head along to connectedpe.com and find out more about that, including where that's all happening and taking place. You want to give a brief overview of what you might be looking at during that keynote and so forth?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to getting to
I'm excited too.
Connected PE. Yeah, it's in Dubai. I haven't been to Dubai before, so that's exciting as well to sort of get there and see what that's all about. Probably going to be looking a lot at sort of like I talked about, like physical education with a purpose, and looking at like learning outcomes and how we break down learning outcomes and how we assess for that learning. So if we want kids to be able to demonstrate certain things, how can we get that? How can we assess them against that? A little bit of technology stuff and how that sort of feeds into it. But just sort of like looking at PE as something that's more than just collection of games, and how we can make it actually meaningful so that students can develop their physical literacy and become active and healthy adults.
Awesome. Couldn't have said it better. That's something that I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing in the program. And if you have any questions, then feel free to leave them below for a full episode transcript. You can head along to the pegeek.com/59, as in episode 59. And I really want to thank you, Nathan, for taking the time out of your day to stop on in and share a little bit about your journey using tech in PE.
No, I'm more than welcome to do it anytime, mate. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Awesome. We'll speak soon, mate. See ya.
No worries. Bye.